Give it 30 seconds. And welcome to Three Geeks in a Microphone podcast. I'm Dean.
I'm Art.
I'm Russ.
Today we have a special guest, Mr. Matt Swaford of Reclaimer Toys of Instagram. Welcome, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Today we have an interesting episode. We are going to be reviewing the 1986 film Top Gun. So, gentlemen, earliest memories of for the first time you saw Top Gun?
Oh, geez, I probably saw it like after it came out, like for video rental. But it was one of the first affordable movies you could buy on VHS, I think.
It totally created the retail VHS market, because before that, I think every VHS was like $100 to buy, and it was the first one that was like $26.95, and they had a whole pallet of them when you walked into Kmart.
But yeah, I mostly remember like going to school after having seen it, and all the little assholes in class were like, the girl in that movie is the one that sang that song. And everybody, I'm like, what? They seriously thought she's the woman that sang that song by Berlin, Take My Breath Away.
So they thought Kelly McGillis was the singer of Berlin. Oh my God.
That's frightening.
That's funny how kids associate like that.
Yeah, and it was because she was in one of the music videos, or one version of it, I think.
Yeah, there's three.
But yeah, everybody was quoting it. I remember seeing kids in my neighborhood getting on their bikes and doing that stupid over and under high five, and saying they needed the Need for Speed, then pedaling as fast as they could. Fucking retards.
I first saw it. I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it when it first came out on VHS for rental, and it was one of those that was perennially sold out. Like it was always rented. And when I finally did get to see it, I was definitely one of those kids that was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is like watching a G.I. Joe movie, but just the pilots. So it definitely appealed to me as a kid. I've since become a lot more critical of it, but it at the time it was, I feel like it really tapped into that jingoistic kind of American patriotism that we had in 1985, 1986, and where it was, we had just won most of the Olympics, and we had the guy that was on the boat, Dennis something, and he won the cup. Mm-hmm. And it was just that kind of, the Reagan era hoo-ha, everything. And I feel like it really hit at the right time for all that. And so yeah, it was definitely an effective movie. But it fell into that category of movie that whether I liked everything about it at the time or not, everybody else liked it. So it was kind of like one of those things where I kind of had to fall in line and was like, oh yeah, Top Gun's awesome, sure, but that's where, as I got older, it was kind of like, well, wait a minute, there's problems here. But yeah, at the time it was a humongous movie. And like Art said, there was, kids were pretending their bikes were F-14s, and the double high five and all of that stuff, and quoting it, and the Need for Speed and everything else. I remember kids wrecking on their bike and being like, I'm in a flat spin. But yeah, so I saw it, I was there for when it was available for rental, I should say.
Russ?
Oh man. Yeah, sorry, I was having some technical difficulties there, bouncing off and on. But okay. Yeah, I was one of them that I remember, because my sister 7 years older than I am, so she was always more into the pretty boy movies, so Top Gun was one that she's like, hubba, I gotta watch this. Well, I had seen Iron Eagle on video before we rented Top Gun, so Top Gun to me was like, okay, because you had Like, I'm sorry. I love Kenny Loggins' music and stuff, but he's nothing compared to Queen, you know. So to me, watching Top Gun I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. And I'm still the same way when I watched it last night. In fact, I started to fall asleep, and it's hard when you're a fat guy at a computer watching a movie and you start to doze off. And I've seen it several times over the years. But yeah, my first experience would have been probably early 1987 when we rent, and it was at the time that we would actually rent a VCR because we didn't own one. We rented the VCR and pick out like 5 movies and have the weekend for just movie time.
Okay.
So yeah, 87, whenever it came out on video.
I remember those days. The rental VCRs were always like these big industrial, like flip top ones too.
Yeah, I have one in my collection, a top loader. I need to replace the bands, but man, that thing is awesome. It's like, it's about 30 pounds.
It's like you could climb into it to fix it, like an old car.
Yeah. I don't have to remove the screws. Just
interestingly, later today, I am about to join you. My beta player should be here today, and I just got to start fixing it. But anyhow, I think this was a rental for me the first time I saw it. And I've always loved aircraft, even as a kid. And that opening shot of it's the Enterprise, right? Right, Art? The USS Enterprise?
It's supposed to be, but it's actually the USS Ranger.
Is it Ranger? Okay. Yeah, because that's right, because the Ranger is now shaving heads. They got rid of it for scrap, I believe, didn't they?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, it was also the ship they used for Star Trek for the voyage home.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, that opening shot though of the F-14s launching off the deck, just my jaw hit the ground, and I've been a fan ever since. Now, like Matt said, seeing it now with different eyes, yeah, it's got some issues to it, but
it's the worst Transformers movie ever made. In a year when the cartoon movie came out, it was still worse than that. And they didn't kill Optimus Prime.
It does have that going for it. So the image that you just mentioned, Dean, the sunset and the silhouetting and everything, like the way a lot of this movie is shot is just absolutely beautiful. It's very, Tony Scott brought a lot of that commercial kind of MTV video quality with some of the imagery in this movie. And I mean, love it or hate it, some of the aerial photography in this movie, I feel like will never be matched, just in scope and scale, because of the Navy's involvement. They were allowed to use a lot of real equipment. That's one of the, I mean, I love Iron Eagle. I actually enjoy Iron Eagle more than Top Gun, but they were a little bit limited with what they could use because they had the Israeli Air Force stuff. And, a lot of those shots and they recycle shots in Top Gun too, but they recycle a ton of them in Iron Eagle, where it's like, oh, here's another stock shot of this.
Because I know Paramount went to, Grumman, and they had them build custom mounts to mount cameras on the outside of the aircraft so they could get footage while they were in flight.
That's correct. Yeah.
What's crazy is they only paid like $1.8 million to use all that equipment. And what's scary to me is, like, after having been in the Navy, when you realize how much stuff costs, Jesus, they got off cheap.
Yeah. That's really cheap.
Well, they probably had massive enrollment afterwards of everyone wanting to be Tom Cruise.
They actually had recruiting stations outside, or like in the movie theaters, in the lobbies.
That's just mean. Yep, these little psyched up kids. Yay!
Well, I was reading that their recruitment the next year went up like 500%. just because of this movie. So
I knew older kids in my neighborhood that were teenagers and early adults that joined the Navy because of this movie. They were like the muscle shirt, backwards hat, Camaro, cigarette smoking, punk teenagers. And they saw this movie and they wanted to be fighter pilots.
Then they figured out what Navy stands for too, didn't they? Never again volunteer yourself.
Yeah, they ended up in like services, or just doing something that's very much not fighter piloting.
I was just going to say they probably had massive janitors.
Jumped into the enlisted corps.
They're all with their mop buckets. The need for speed, fastest mopper in them.
Call me Viper in 2.3 seconds.
So
yeah, that's how Slider really got his name, was sliding that mop all over the deck.
So generally how we do this, we kind of give a walkthrough of the movie. Feel free to interject or start off however you want. So let's see, when it opens up, you see the aircraft doing launch operations in the Indian Ocean. And I love how it says present day. They never thought people might be watching this movie in the future, It's now 35 years old.
That's because not a lot of foresight on that part.
Say what? Go ahead, Art.
Oh, I was just gonna say they figured we'd all be watching like Jaws 14 by that point. So
So we're doing carrier operations, and what is it? Maverick and Cougar are sent up in typical flight pattern, and they come into contact with some Russian MiGs. They're supposed to be MiG-28s. They're actually A5s that were used for the film. And I don't know, any of you guys, I did flight operations when I was in the service. Art, you were on subs, so you didn't deal much with aircraft, but
no, we just tried to hide from the P3 Orions.
I don't get why their visors were not down. They're flying in it's morning, blinding sun. Why weren't their visors down in any scene? The US pilots, they never had their visors down.
I think that's more of a movie making decision, because you want to be able to at least see their eyes and tell what actor is who. Same reason, like in The Abyss, James Cameron actually created the full face diving helmet with the lights inside so that you could see which actor was who.
I see. Well,
that would be my answer, but I don't know officially. Stylistic choice, I guess.
Well, Tom Cruise definitely did not want his face covered at all, ever. Except
never
with those sunglasses when his hair can show.
Well, from what I was from what I was reading, when they first wanted to do this movie, they approached Tom Cruise and he didn't want to do it. He kept saying he didn't want to do it. So they took him up in an F-14. And
they should have just dropped him out without a parachute.
Well, damn, some Tom Cruise hate.
They should have ejected him so he could see how Goose felt. How do you like it, motherfucker?
Snap your neck.
So, from what I was reading while he was doing a test flight, he was about to puke, so he grabs his air stick bag, and the pilot goes into a dive, and it presses his head to the ground. So he can't move, and he can't reach the switch to tell the pilot, "Hey, I'm about to puke all over myself." So they level out. He pukes. As soon as the thing gets down to if they land, he gets out, runs to a payphone, and says, "I'm doing this movie. I'm doing it." Anthony Edwards, every principal actor in this movie, all the pilots and Rios, they all went up in F-14s. The only one to not puke was Anthony Edwards. What that tells you, I have no idea. But so
did they tell them not to eat a lot before they went up? At least?
I hope so. Otherwise, I feel bad for the pilot.
Yeah, no doubt.
Spewing down the back of his. Anyways.
So Anthony Edwards has the best G-force resistance out of all Hollywood actors.
It looks like it.
Did they even have Clarence Gilliard Jr. go up?
I guess all of them did, from what I was reading. But so, and again, so they get up, and ironically, it looks like we found out what happened to Michael from My Science Project. He got out of high school, joined the Navy, and became a pilot. So he freaks out. Now I noticed he freaks out, lands when he's in the captain's room. What is his name? Not Strickland. Did they ever say his name? The captain of the boat.
His code name is Stinger. His call sign.
Stinger.
Yep.
He says to him, "Come on, we've seen this before." Now, if you've wigged out like this before, you're going to get grounded for a while. You're not going to be flying until they are sure you can handle it. So my question is, why was he on flight status if this happened months before? And they made it sound like it was recent.
He's never had bad judgment.
Yeah, well,
like Stinger said, Cougar was the best. So when you're the best, you get a lot of latitude to have, freakouts.
They gave him 2 Motrin and a bottle of water or a canteen and sent him back the fuck up.
I've been here before.
That's that military medicine. It's like, yeah, you feel okay? All right, you're fine.
You're missing a limb, but yeah, it's just a scratch.
2 Motrins, drink a canteen of water, you'll be all right.
I do want to say that I didn't appreciate it as a kid, but as an adult, I do like that because at the very beginning of that, you're thinking, oh, this is, there's Tom Cruise, there's Maverick, and then this Cougar guy, oh, he must be a big deal too. I like that they kind of switched it up a little bit and yanked him out of it and was like, oh yeah, this guy was the best. He was way better than the star of your movie, but he has, he's got PTSD or he's got problems. So he's out of there. And I like that they kind of showed, and maybe I'm over romanticizing this, but I feel like I like that they showed that there's consequences to being in situations like that for, not only soldiers, but also for pilots, where it's like, wow, this guy was all over my ass. Yeah, he didn't shoot me down, but I felt like he could have for like a good minute.
Right.
And, and then he's looking at his wife and kids and just that whole connection. I thought it was really well done. And I like how they kind of touch on that later in the movie with Maverick after, losing Goose and having the guilt from that and everything. I like that they kind of touch on that I always like when there's consequences in war movies. And that it's not just high-fiving and having fun and killing the bad guys.
There's a human being inside that cockpit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do like that they did that. That doesn't make up for the volleyball scene, but
we'll get there.
Yeah.
Well, so excuse me. Let me see here. So this is, of course, where he tells them, for 5 weeks you're gonna go. I can't believe I'm doing this. Says one of the best lines ever. You screw up just this much, you'll be flying a cargo plane full of rubber dog shit out of Hong Kong. Can't go wrong there.
And I feel like James Tolkan had some of him and Tom Skerritt and Michael Ironside had some of the best lines in this movie.
Definitely.
And Tolkan he chews scenery every single, because I was telling my girlfriend when we were watching it, I'm like, he's only got like 6 minutes of screen time, but talk about making the most out of that 6 minutes. Even the pedestrian lines that he has, he hammers them. The rubber dog shit, what did he say? Oh, when he's talking about like buzzing the tower and being put in hack, and He just really, really eats that role up.
Oh, you mentioned something. Speaking of Hack, so when he's chewing out Maverick, he tells him, "You've been put in Hack twice by me." Now, I'm an Air Force guy. Now, from what I've read, Art, can you confirm this?
Yeah, it's confined to quarters or your bunk or the ship, depending, like on a submarine. Yeah, you're tied to the submarine.
Okay. So, like, if say the carrier went into a port and he was in Hack, he can't leave.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Now, is this a normal punishment for fucking up like this?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a punishment for all kinds of things.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this, Art. Like, if he would have actually done, if a pilot would have actually done what he did at the beginning of this, where he's getting ready to land on the carrier and he decides to, nope, I'm going back for my buddy, what would have happened to him?
Honestly, in the real Navy, I don't know that somebody would have actually gone back. I honestly think he would have landed. I think Maverick would have landed his plane.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been the normal thing to do. But if somebody did something, if somebody did something as crazy as that,
they probably would have green tabled him or given him a captain's mast, which is basically where he's got to stand in front of the captain and the senior ranking ship's officers. And it's kind of like they call it a non-judicial punishment. Basically, you know, it's like a court hearing. And they kind of go over the incident. Why did you do this? They probably would have slapped him on the wrist, but it would have been pretty serious in the sense that, yeah, you're risking a $30 million aircraft. So, I mean, it could have gone either way.
Right. I've heard over the years, different, you know, everybody's an expert, but I've had different people say like, oh yeah, that would have been the end of his naval career. You know, taking back off the back of the aircraft carrier like that and being that low on fuel, they said that would have been it. But again, who knows?
Today, probably. I mean, I could see that as today in today's military, or even when like during the time that Dean and I were in, yeah, I could totally see them throwing somebody out over that.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is what was the need for him to go back anyway? It's not like he's going to piggyback him on. He could have just counseled him through the radio. I know the whole, I'm right here with you. No, you're not. You're in a jet that's not going to crash in comparison to his.
Yeah, he could have landed and then just done that over, you know.
Yeah, the whole time watching the scene again last night, I'm like, just get on the radio, dude. Get out of your plane, follow orders, do the right thing, and get on there and say, hey.
I get that, but you know, it's if he's wigged out like he was, actually seeing him there, the visual cue can kind of snap him back into reality. You know what I'm saying?
I can see that too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not just a voice on a radio. This is my friend next to me.
Yeah, like I'm right here.
Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to
it's kind of like if somebody's having somebody's having a panic attack and you know, you're not doing anything, but you're like, hey, I'm right here, you know, look at me or whatever. Yeah, that makes sense. And he does say, you know, I'm stay on my wing and I'm going to guide you right in, even though he really kind of doesn't seem to do anything.
I guess he probably has better visual that way, but say get up or pull up or.
I mean, one of the things that we would do, and we were bringing in, if we had large amounts of aircraft bringing in, we prioritize them by the amount of fuel they have. Whoever's lowest lands first, and then going backwards. And if there was a problem, or for example, we would send up a tanker to tank them off for more fuel if we had to. I am assuming the Navy would do the same thing. They would launch if they're that low and they're having an issue, they would launch a tanker just to top him off, so he had enough fuel to make more passes to land.
One of the things that I kind of wondered about that too, but one of the things I questioned was, as low as they were at, did they have enough fuel to climb high enough to get to a tanker? I mean, because that would have involved circling around, getting up high enough to get to a tanker. So they're not right above the carrier.
True.
I think they should have just had them both crash at the beginning of the movie and be like, well, that sucked.
Well, believe it or not, that was the original script. That was the plan. They Cougar was supposed to slam his jet into the back of that carrier and die. And the Navy, when they saw that, they're like, no, we don't want to portray our pilots in a light like this. So they nixed that completely, and they had to redo part of the script to have a different way to get him out of first place. Because in the initial script, he was going to die. So, all right. So where were we? So Captain Strickland is chewing him out. Then the next thing we know, we see him riding his ninja in Miramar. Now, I've never had you've never been out there, have you, Art?
No.
Miramar Station? No, I didn't think so. Fighter Town, USA. Nowadays, they don't, in 97, I believe it was, it's now a U.S. Marine Corps Air Base. And they moved Top Gun to Fallon in Nevada. So they still hold Top Gun to this day, but it's now held in Nevada instead of California. So let's see here. And next we get to the first time we see the ensemble cast. All the pilots are in the ready room. They're talking to Jester and Viper. Now he mentions that when he's going over what Top Gun's for, aerial combat maneuvers, dogfighting, he says that, what was it, in Korea the kill ratio is 12-1, and in Vietnam it dropped to 4-1. This is true, but I know early versions of the F4, which was prominent in Vietnam, didn't have a cannon. It didn't have any guns. So of course they had to be dependent on missiles. That's all they had.
So those are skewed numbers then.
So in
the military fudge numbers?
Oh no, never.
That's bad intelligence.
Yeah. Why would they do that?
Yeah, never.
I better be careful. I might get nuked.
Well, I feel like there was probably a lot more, and I don't know that much about the Korean War, but I know there wasn't a ton of aerial battles in Vietnam, as far as dogfighting, because I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I would assume that there would be more in Korea with the planes that they had at the time.
In the traditional sense of dogfighting, yes, because the early sabers and whatnot I don't believe they carried missiles.
Right.
They carried rockets and guns. They were gunning each other like World War II style.
Right.
But with the advent of like the the Phoenix and the Sidewinder going into Vietnam, he was correct. Everything was dependent on missiles. Now, later variants of the F4 did have a machine gun. They could gun. But early in the war, they were correct because they run out of missiles, they're screwed. They have to go back. So, of course, now we see Val Kilmer, all the other pilots, and there's two O's in Goose, boys. There's two O's in Goose. See if I remember correctly.
That joke always landed when I was a kid watching it, and older people would laugh, and I never saw that it was that funny of a thing. It's like he's saying that they're dumb and they don't know how to spell goose, but I was like, I always thought there was a hidden meaning in that, and I guess there just isn't one.
No. Guys, help me out here. Whenever I do this try from memory, I always get shit out of order. So we got do we go into the first hop? Is it the first, or do we go into the first flight hop?
No. Right after that, they go to I guess they're like on the tarmac. No, yeah, then they go to the bar, and then they go to the tarmac where they have the meeting where they introduce Charlie.
Okay. Let's get into the bar first of all. Okay.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Okay.
I can talk about this bar scene for like an hour.
Now, I think Art and I, we were debating about this the other day, because you see a quick outside shot of it, and there's cars around and whatnot, and they show the inside with the blue neon at the ceiling. My question is this a public bar off base, or is this an officers club?
They never really say.
Because when you see a little later, when Charlie goes to the bathroom, they do a quick exterior shot of the doors going into the ladies' room. That is definitely the inside of a military facility. You have the flag sitting there, the stairs in the background. You got like, I don't know, a receptionist or whatever sitting at the desk. Now, I know that was filmed on base. So does that mean they're in an officers club?
That was always my understanding, was that was like a USO or a yeah, like some kind of base bar.
You know, forgive me if I'm wrong. I don't think civilians can just go onto the base bar.
Back then, yes, they could.
Really?
In fact, our base, the civilians could go into our enlisted base club. They didn't. I don't know that they always. They may have, but I don't know that they always let them into the officers club. The officers club wasn't really that big. Our base bar had like 5 bars in it, and then there was a separate building for the officers. But up until like 2002, 2003, they did let local civilians in. They always checked their IDs, that sort of thing. They had to have a driver's license. But yeah, they actually did let civilians onto the base.
Huh. Not us. But so okay, so let's get into this. So this is it's a wall-to-wall sausage fest when they first show it. There's more white uniforms than I've ever seen anywhere when they first walk in. And anyone else want to move forward with this? Because I'm trying to process this in my head. So if I remember correctly, when they first walk in, he even says, "Oh, this is a target-rich environment."
Well, yeah, and I feel like as soon as they pan from the outside of that building to the inside, the way they kind of stage that, you kind of expect it to be like this explosion of like hot women in like bikinis or something, or in like really sexy like club outfits. And I feel like that's the momentum they have going in. And then they literally show like, you know, a lady that's, you know, they're trying to imply like the first lady that you see is like, oh my God, it's like some goddess. And she's like, oh, hi, like saying hi to her friend. And she kind of looks like a, you know, like a substitute teacher or something. Like she's nothing special. And then they're all like, oh, wow, look at all these chicks. And it's like, no, there's like 4 girls in that bar.
Yeah, no, what those actually are is those are base widows. Those are somebody's wife and their husband's at sea right now, you know, and they're suddenly either widowed or divorced.
Are they looking for Jody?
Yep.
That makes sense. I mean, that definitely tracks.
Oh. And that's actually kind of how I look at that whole scene, is if it is on the base, yeah, those are somebody's wives looking for Jody's.
Oh boy.
I feel like the claim that it's a target rich environment is kind of a fucking lie, because I feel like Charlie's probably the most eligible chick in there. And
well, we get to an interesting piece of dialogue that I've heard it 100 times and it never clicked until I was watching it the other day. Goose says to Maverick, okay, the bet is $20. $20. You have to have carnal knowledge of a lady this time on premises. Let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Yeah, punctuation is great.
Okay, carnal knowledge of a lady this time. What were they doing the last time they had shore leave?
Well, I feel like, and as soon as he says that, Tom Cruise does his like, you know, kind of coy laugh, and it's played for laughs. But you're right. Like, I've never really unpacked that before now, and I'm
guessing they were in Thailand.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of was like Lady Boys in Thailand. Or, or he got so drunk that he woke up next to a donkey or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else they could be angling for there.
And of course, there's Val Kilmer standing in the corner in a dark bar wearing sunglasses, drinking ice water. It's just no.
That's how cool he is.
They tried too hard to make him cool. And by the way, with that fucking haircut, there's no way in hell that shit was in regulation.
Well, I don't really think Mavericks was either, but
no, none of their haircuts were in regulation.
I mean, and look at that photo behind me. Who wears a polo under a poopy suit and gets away with it?
Right.
Yeah, there's a bunch of polos under those flight suits.
Yeah. Well, polos, and you're not supposed to wear anything other than a white t-shirt. And there's like a red one and a blue one, and uniform violations all around.
Oh, tell me about it. You ever notice whenever they're walking around outside, they never have a cover on their hat, on their head?
Yeah. Well, they should have had a cover in that picture.
Right. The only guy that's correct is the dude in the very back.
Yeah, and he's wearing a red polo.
Right.
And he's smirking at you for doing it. It's like, I know I'm out of regulation, but what are you gonna do?
I'm in a movie. I get to wear a red polo.
We're just so cool. We get to do what the fuck we want.
But in that photo behind Art, the star of the movie is definitely Clarence Gilliard Jr.
Yeah.
We could have had it, guy. Man. We could have had it. Anyways, so let's see. We have the conversation with Iceman and Slider. Do you want to know who the best? I guess this is like what, naval dick measuring? Is this naval aviation dick measuring?
Yeah. If you have a Tic Tac.
Well, you want to know who the best is? Have you figured it out yet? Okay, so they bought whatever.
Yeah, so This is all like establishing dominance and kicking your foot in the dirt. Especially in a room full of that much testosterone. I feel like that's the first day of school where it's like, oh yeah, who's the coolest kid here? Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna kick your teeth out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that kind of thing happens when you're in a room full of alpha males.
Yeah, this is very true.
Fortunately, I'm a Sigma.
So, wow.
Well, and I kind of noticed this same kind of thing, happens, in social situations sometimes too. If, you go to a company meeting or something like that with people that are in different branches, there's still that kind of like, oh, if you met this guy, he's the number one salesman in the company. Like there's that same kind of energy. So I feel like that's one of the most honest things in the scene.
The bravado.
Yeah, the bravado and the oh, you know who the best is? My best friend over here. And you know why you suck? Because your name's Goose. Yeah, and just the way he's throwing down shots and talking about his dick, and it's definitely a like Art said, it's an alpha, kind of a slugfest.
So then, of course, he notices Charlie walking in. Now, of course, this is the famous, what is it? You've lost that loving feeling scene where he sings to her to try to get her attention.
That's one of the most cringeworthy parts of the whole damn film.
This is true. I mean, let's face it. Tom Cruise cannot sing. Well, no one in that room could sing. But yeah. Matt, you had pointed this out to me, and I've seen this movie 100 times, and I've never noticed it before. When he first moves into Charlie, when she's sitting up at the bar, if you look to the left, by the way, who was Sundown's pilot?
Chipper.
Say what?
That's Adrian Pazdar. Chipper is his call sign. He has one line in the movie.
Wow. If you look to his left, or if you look to her left, he has his arm around Sundown, feeding him a beer like a baby bottle.
No. Sundown is Clarence Gilliard, and he's draped over Chipper, Adrian Pasdar, who's sitting at the bar.
Yep.
He has his arm around him, and he's feeding him a beer like a baby. And then it's real fast, but it's there.
And then when they turn and you see like the perspective, like Charlie's in front of you, and you can see them sitting to the right for a quick second, he does it again. Why? Yeah. At what point did I've been in bars before? I've been in bars with soldiers. We have never fed each other beer this way.
I've never seen it before either. Oh God.
I've done lots of drinking, and I've never ever done that.
I've never fed another man a beer.
I have a feeling someone in production or the actors themselves had a very, very interesting childhood. And then when they said, hey, you just do something wild and crazy to make this, they're like, oh, let's do this. This is normal. This is what they do when they get really wild. And then everyone else is probably like what we're doing now. Huh?
And it was
that might have been an actor choice too, where, Tony Scott's direction might have been, okay, so you guys are, you're in scene, but you're out of focus. So just kind of, I don't know, act wild, act drunk, do whatever. You guys are having fun. And I feel like that's probably Gilliard and Pasdar talking before the scene saying, okay, I don't know, like, they're drunk, they're buddies. I'm going to put my arm around you and feed you a beer because we're that drunk. Or something stupid.
And that's kind of like, it's like, what kind of childhood did they have to go there?
or I could see Gilliard going, hey, this is how my uncle used to do it with me when I was a kid. Let me show you.
That's that kind of.
No, man, no.
And the other guy's like, I've never been in a bar before, but okay.
I'm 20, so I don't know how people act in bars. Yeah, it's a weird sight. I had to pause it. I had to rewind it and pause it. And I'm like, what is he doing with that beer bottle? And, and after that scene, after he goes to the first bar, Gilliard takes the mic from him and continues singing. So I feel like that was part of a play into that, where it's like, oh yeah. And then he's drunk and then he's like, oh no, I'll take over. Haha. And so I feel like that's probably the genesis of that decision, but it's still weird to see.
And had you not mentioned it, I don't think I would have noticed it. I'd never noticed it before until you mentioned it to me. And then I was doing my watch through last night and I went, what the fuck? Okay. And of course, every guy in there is singing, and she says, okay, sit down. He crashes and burns. And then she goes and sits with this older guy. Now, the guy she sits down with was an actual Top Gun instructor. Pellegrew is his name. I can't think of his first name.
Pete Pettigrew, yeah.
Thank you. That's it. And he was the technical advisor, one of the technical advisors on the film. So it kind of makes me wonder what was going through his head while he had to sit there and watch them film this. He's probably like, I don't remember doing this when I was a Top Gun, but okay.
Well, he's the actual Viper.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's Pete Viper Pettigrew, and that's who they based Viper on. And I knew, I've known that for a long time. And then when I looked it up, I was like, okay, well, let's see what this guy's accolades are. Like, I mean, I know he's a rear admiral now. But let me look at like his accomplishments. And apparently he shot down an enemy jet in Vietnam. He shot down one. And and I'm not a fighter pilot groupie or anything, but I was kind of like that, he shot down one. Like, one guy, like one plane, I guess. And I guess that's a big deal.
It's a lot rarer than you think, because
yeah,
Willie Driscoll is, I think, the only ace to come out of the Vietnam War for the Navy, and he did what, 4, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I felt like just juxtaposed to the movie, of course, when it's Hollywood and it's all fantasy, but like, Maverick shooting down like 5 guys in that last fight. So it was a little underwhelming when you look at, real life compared to the fantasy.
right.
But I mean, still a badass, don't get me wrong, but that was just that kind of jumped out at me. I'm like, wow. So, okay, cool.
And of course, we get the infamous scene where he follows her into the bathroom and says, basically, I want to fuck you on this counter. And she blows him off. But she helps him out as she's walking past Goose, he says, your friend was magnificent. Nah. Interestingly, the building that was filmed in, the bathroom scene, the ladies' room scene, I believe the whole thing was renovated years later. That counter was stolen. It was missing when they went to redo the building. Why someone would want to keep that, I have no idea. But anyways.
Somebody wanted to fuck like Maverick on that thing.
I guess so.
You find some weird collector in there. This was a countertop. It's all out of place in their house, all sideways because it doesn't fit in the space they provided. Collectors are weird.
Girl out there that saw Top Gun in '86, and she always wanted to get banged on that counter.
And she's like all grossly disgusting, and it still hasn't happened.
Guy's got it mounted to his wall with a sign, Maverick almost fucked here. So next we get into the pre, or not even pre-flight, the training op. And of course, Charlie walks in, and Maverick's now all embarrassed. He puts his sunglasses on, and this is when we get now something I noticed here. When she turns around on her leather jacket, did you notice she's wearing wings and insignia?
I didn't catch that. No.
Yeah, and at one point on her collar, she's wearing like, wow, she's wearing another pin, but.
Well, from what I read, she's wearing a petty officer's rank.
Yeah.
And she has flight wings. You cannot do that even as a civilian contractor. You cannot wear rank and insignia on a base. It's a felony.
Yeah.
So, I'm surprised the gate guards would have let her anyways. So she goes over, and of course the whole I was inverted. I got a good Polaroid of it, etc., which I should have mentioned earlier. That is so implausible, but anyhow.
Want to have a Polaroid on a on a jet, or to be inverted?
Not to be inverted, but to have a Polaroid on a jet and to attempt to pull that off, because
security violations.
Yep, and these guys are so well trained, they don't leave their wingman. He's not just gonna let his buddy, his ass in the wind with bandits in the air. It's just not gonna happen. But
Maverick plays by his own rules.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if you guys know this, but when Val Kilmer does the whole bullshit, that was completely ad-libbed.
Yeah.
That whole bullshit was totally ad-libbed. So they go over and, okay, yeah, you're the only guy that's been up against a MiG-28. I want to talk to you about it. And next thing you know, they're now up in the air doing their first hop. Now, I always get these hops confused. The first one was just Jester, correct? Yeah, because it's the second one when Viper shows up. Right? Am I thinking right?
Yeah, the first one is just Jester.
Okay. And they kind of nail this home. You don't leave their wingman. Now, I will say this. The aerial footage was amazing. in the aerial combat scenes. I don't know if there's a huge amount to talk about here. I mean, what do you think, guys? Do you want to go through this, or?
I think, I mean, it's beautiful photography throughout the whole movie. I really liked how Michael Ironside played Jester, and just, I mean, that's part of the joke of his call sign, is that he doesn't crack a smile through that whole movie, and he's just so terse and rigid and serious. And I loved the dynamic with him and Viper being the older kind of badasses. And I loved the firmness of Jester and as an instructor, and how he was letting especially Maverick kind of hang himself with his own youth and bravado. And that was kind of like his teaching style is, right. Don't be a knucklehead, because I know you're going to be a knucklehead, but see what happens when you're a knucklehead.
Right. So of course he gets Jester by going below the hard deck. Now, if anyone who's ever flown anything knows, the hard deck is flight jargon for this is ground level. Whatever we set it to, in this case, would be 10,000 feet. That's the hard deck. That would be like hitting the ground. So the whole thing where he goes, I was below the hard deck for a few seconds and I took the shot. Well, any trained pilot wouldn't do this, because if you're below the hard deck, you are in the ground. You wouldn't see this. It just doesn't make sense to me.
There's no coming back. Yeah.
Right.
You're dead.
You can't go below the hard deck.
Yeah, so, that to me was like when you see a submarine movie and you see him like, we're going to sit on the bottom and play dead. Do you realize, I mean, most people don't realize how far below a submarine the bottom really is. We hardly ever operated where in areas where they're beneath us, and at some point you will get crushed. I guess I kind of always looked at that scene where they're talking about the hard deck and going below it, kind of the same way where in a movie you always see them bottom out the submarine and then wait for the enemies to pass, or whoever's dropping depth charges. It's all bullshit.
Yeah, it's all movie crap.
Yeah, well, no, granted, the aerial dogfighting was cool. There's one thing this film does nicely is the aerial shots, like we were saying. So, and what is up with? Okay, he gets back, of course, and both pilots are all discussing, the Hollywood and Wolfman, they didn't even see him. They died in the first couple seconds. And then of course, Iceman gets him. We got him too. Oh no, below the hard deck doesn't count. They're all standing around in towels. Okay, I get it, but is it just me, or do these guys spend way too much time in towels in the shower in this movie?
Oh yeah, there's a whole lot of skin time. And I've played sports. I've been in locker rooms. There's locker room mentality. That's a, phrase for a reason, but you're not just going to have a full on like deep conversation about something or whatever. I mean, it's like it's the sweatiness and the excitement after the game. I get it, but yeah, they're a little too at home in that locker room.
Oh, you've been on a ship long enough. I could see it, but yeah. I mean, there's not a whole lot of places to go on a ship or a submarine.
That's true. Yeah, that makes sense.
Our big place was the torpedo room or cruise mess. Most guys didn't spend a whole lot of time in the shitter having conversations, other than dude, you just dropped the biggest shit I've ever heard. I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Well, I feel like the hard deck thing is important too, and just them discussing it in that locker room, because they kind of set up the order where it's like, okay, Iceman and Slider, they got him, they won. Hollywood and Wolfman got killed right off the stumbling blocks, and Maverick had to cheat in order to get him. So it's like 1, 2, 3. Like, this is the order in which these guys are good. I feel like that's what they established with that, all of that dialogue. But it's funny because, you know, according to the rules of their game, Hollywood and Wolfman got killed, quote unquote, because he lined him up and got a target lock. So that's one of the rules. So now they are, you know, in make-believe land, they are dead. Maverick and Goose went below the hard deck, so technically they crashed into the ground according to these make-believe rules. Right. So they lost just as much as Hollywood and Wolfman did. But in the movie logic, it's like, oh no, they got him because they bent a rule, but they still got him, but it doesn't count. So Iceman is 100% correct that below the hard deck doesn't count because they're dead.
Well, based on that logic too, why would Jester go below the hard deck?
He went below the hard deck to make Maverick break the rule because he knew he would.
I say, you know, I didn't.
He was doing that to test him. Yeah.
Okay. So
I mean, that's what I reckoned. I mean, I don't know, but that's what I always got from it.
And of course, we have the running joke of we're gonna buzz the tower with the air boss sitting there with his cup of coffee, because next time you see him, you notice Viper and Jester are getting chewed out by the air boss. And now I don't know if you guys noticed this. Of course, we walks out. There's the what is that? A yeoman art? The guy with the tray of coffee. I didn't notice it. I don't see his rank, but he's in whites.
I would assume it was a yeoman. Typically higher ranking officers also have like a lower ranking officer, like an admiral will have like a lieutenant that follows them around and does things like opens doors and things like that. Brings them coffee.
Well, as he's walking out, he bashes it. He hits the dude with the tray, and of course, the coffee spills all over. It's like, God damn it, that's twice. If you look very carefully, after everything gets spilt, the guy holding the tray tilts it slightly, and it reads Pepsi on the tray. This was purposeful product placement.
Oh, yes.
I never noticed it before until I was watching it through the other day. Did you guys notice that?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Russ?
I didn't really notice. I'll probably go back just to see that then.
You got to really watch for it, but for a split second, he tilts the tray almost sideways, and it clearly reads Pepsi.
Well, that tracks, because Pepsi did when the movie came out on VHS, they did a whole commercial and a whole promotion with Pepsi, to where they're drinking a Pepsi in the cockpit, and then while they're flying, and then he has to turn it up, he has to do a flip and go upside down in order to pour it. Yeah, that Pepsi had a big stake in this movie.
Yeah, and you see the cans all throughout. I mean, I kind of got nostalgia for the old school Pepsi myself while watching it. Not current Pepsi. That's ass.
Yeah, I want real sugar in my Pepsi.
Yeah.
So
diabetes.
Oh no. Here we go again. So they get their butts chewed out, and this is where we kind of get a little background on Maverick, where Viper chews him out, and he says, nothing's flexible here. You're going to do what I tell you. Dismisses him, and when he's talking to Michael Ironsides, he's like, he's got his file. He's like, it's all right there. He's a complete wild card, unpredictable, flies by the seat of his pants. And he asked him a very valid question. If you have to go into combat, do you want him with you? And I like his answer. He's like, I don't know, because you don't know what he's going to do. He's a good pilot, but he doesn't have that sense of teamwork or camaraderie yet that you're supposed to look after the guys in your squadron. Am I reading this wrong, or what do you think, guys?
No. I agree. I think that's a hard one to answer, especially with just one bit of experience with him. But I feel like the honest answer for him would have been no. Not, based on what I've seen right now, there's no way I could comfortably, because he's that wild and he's that kind of self-centered and not a team guy. But of course, that's the hero of our movie, so they can't do that.
I kind of think that whole thing was sort of bullshit anyway, because you think he'd have the camaraderie thing down by the time he actually got to the ship,
right?
He's already doing missions on the ship. But well, fuck it, goddamn Hollywood.
Well, and it really goes against what they established earlier, because he's obviously a team guy, because he risked his career to take back off and to go back and get Cougar.
Yeah.
So ultimately, he's very much a team guy, but he's also, completely self-centered.
So it's kind of a weird dichotomy going here.
Yeah, like they can't make up their mind on who this guy is. It's almost like they were trying to emotionally layer Maverick for the audience.
Let's see here. So, Russ, you got anything on that?
Oh, no, just listening.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just
No, it's all good.
I agree. I don't have anything to add. Just
yeah. Because I'll tell you, dude, your comments are amazing. By the way, when we do these, I love your observations. So let's see. Okay, moving forward, what is next? We actually kind of see a heart-to-heart moment here with Goose and Maverick when it's like late. He knocks on the door. He's still up, and Goose tells Maverick, he's like, when we first got here, I just wanted to win the trophy, but now I just hope we graduate. He's almost telling him, calm it down a little bit so we can get through this. Now, the only thing I don't get here is when he says he's like, I got a wife and kids, I can't blow this. Well, it's just training. It's not like they're going to throw him out of the aerial program for not winning Top Gun. I mean, he's still a valid Rio. I mean, he can still do his job, right?
Well, that depends. If he gets thrown out of, if you get in the military, or at least in the Navy, for us, if you got thrown out of a training course, you usually had to go answer to your captain. There always was a possibility you'd get thrown out altogether. So, I mean, depending on what your violation was, and when we're not recording, I got a messed up story about that too.
Well, one thing that let's say Maverick did keep screwing up and keep messing up, and Goose is just the co-pilot. He can't stop him. So it's like if he could sit there and be like, "Hey, I can't do anything. I'm sorry. You stuck me with him."
Navy mentality at that time. I mean, even when I was in, with one ship, one screw, I could see him being in as much trouble, because like under the UCMJ, if you're in the military and like your wife steals something from the NEX, you're in as much trouble.
Yep.
Whether you were
it's like I could see Goose being punished for being part of it, but not completely, like, and I'm just going by what I would think would be more of a common sense type of thing, where Maverick, if he screwed up to the point where he's getting court-martialed and removed or anything, Goose has his hands tied to a degree. I can see getting punished for not being a little bit more influential on his partner, but at the same time,
there's only so much he could have done.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Makes sense.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, no, that makes sense. It's kind of like if, you're in a car with somebody and they're the one driving, but depending on how bad what they do, depending on how bad it is, whatever they do, you're in the car too. So you share some of the blame, but probably not all of it.
And you're right, Art. It's the team mentality. It's like when we could have been doing a field exercise. If out of the field, one guy fucks up, everyone does, so everyone's doing push-ups. It's that type of, you're a unit, not an individual. So we're moving forward. We got that, like, and I actually kind of like this particular scene because he mentions, Goose says to him, he's like, they wouldn't let you into the academy because of who your dad was, and you got this, you're kind of like living in your dad's shadow. And I like what he says. He's like, but every time we go up there, it's like you're flying against a ghost. How can I put this? Not like he's literally flying against his dad, but is he trying to measure himself to his performance to his dad because his dad was such a good pilot?
Yeah, that's how I take that.
Yeah, that's how I always figured it.
Yeah, so did I. And I actually like that line. It's like you're flying against a ghost. And it's at that moment he kind of realizes, maybe I should dial this back a little bit because, like you said, his family's dead. You're the only family I got. And if I screw this up, I'm going to screw this up for you too.
Well, yeah, Goose kind of puts him on notice, and just says, look, man, it's not easy being your friend. and, and your de facto family, and you can't screw this up. Like there's other people you need to start thinking about. And but yeah, I always took that line of dialogue. It's one of the best in the movie where he's like, you're flying against a ghost up there, and he really is. He's trying to measure up to his dad's legacy and his dad's reputation. And it's, somebody he didn't really know that well because when he would have died, Maverick would have been a kid. He would have been like eight years old, something like that. So there's probably that mystery in his mind of who his dad really was.
Right.
And that probably contributes. I feel like we're getting way into the psychology of these characters, but I feel like that probably continues to affect how he is and why he acts the way he does.
Which probably just got deeper than the writers did.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, the guy writing this is watching going, wow, I never thought about that.
I'm really good at making movies.
I'm a genius.
So, all right, so let me get back in my timeline here. So he has the heart-to-heart, and next is, I'm always getting out of order. What's next? Fuck.
No, that happens later.
Yes, it happens. It does happen later. There's an interesting story behind that too.
Well, yeah, especially if you know about Kelly McGillis.
Yes. So I don't think I have anything.
That loving feeling.
Yeah, I think Tom Cruise is to blame for that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, is next where you're sitting? Yeah, is it Maverick and Slider? They're in the classroom.
Yeah, I believe so. I don't have a timeline.
Yeah, I didn't do a timeline. I'm trying to do this by memory, but we'll just go. So Maverick and Slider are studying. Interestingly, none of the books that they have in front of them have anything to do with aviation at all.
No, but there's Pepsi everywhere.
Yes, there is. They're both drinking Pepsis.
The choice of the new generation.
Over
Slider's got the toy jet that he's like whooshing around. So he's doing his work.
Yep.
So Charlie comes in, and of course, Maverick's trying to get with her again, and she jots down her address. and gives it to him, and it says 5:30 sharp. Did you notice when she was writing down on that thing, it was like a form of some type, but when he opens it up to read it, it's just a blank piece of paper with her handwriting on it?
The top secret form. You have to have special glasses to see it.
Disappearing ink.
It's one of the weird things I noticed. And of course, crash and burn, Hamav, Slider, you stink, whatever. And next we get to the infamous volleyball scene.
Oh, yes. It's time to play with the boys.
Out magazine, believe it or not, for like 5 years in a row, rated this their number one scene for years. I don't know why I know this weird little tidbit, but I do. And let's just face it, this whole scene is incredibly homoerotic. You got guy
to the rest of the movie.
Oh yeah, right. But this is just kind of blatantly obvious here. The
towel scenes,
although
the locker room shower stuff.
Although the only one who doesn't have his shirt off is Anthony Edwards.
He didn't do enough sit-ups.
He probably has a third nipple hiding it.
So he's got one of those growths like on his rib cage. I mean, for the past 35 years, even when I saw it, of course, everybody was like, "Oh, wow! Like this is a little, it's a little over the top." As far as, I mean, there's a lot of homoeroticism in this movie. I feel like this is probably the break point for it, but I feel like, and maybe I have just had the ability to watch it with innocent eyes, but I mean, I've played beach volleyball before. I've played volleyball not on the beach before. I've played sports with guys where we didn't have our shirts on and we get all sweaty and glistening. And I feel like more so than just that, I feel like the way it's framed, the way it's shot, the music involved, it's a really bouncy. I feel like you put any other song on that scene and it doesn't have nearly the effect. I feel like that song really plays into it and the verbiage in the song. But it's definitely, the slow-mo shots of them like flexing and, him checking his watch where he's like, and like doing the shoulder breakdown flex. And Slider like doing his howl and kind of humping the air. Like I feel like that has more to do with it than just, guys on the beach with their shirts off playing volleyball. Like that's pretty benign.
It kind of makes you wonder if they were like consciously aware that they were doing those things while they were being filmed.
And how did they get them to do it? Because a couple of them they probably have seen the scene after the fact and be like, where a couple of them, like Tom Cruise is probably like,
well, I feel like they probably shot that scene for hours and they just really just cherry picked, in editing.
Yeah.
So there was probably a lot of stuff that they did that didn't make the cut. And
like
just
normal stuff.
Well, and there was probably some, even more, stuff that accentuated the homoeroticism even more.
Kind of makes
all featuring Tom Cruise.
Kind of makes me wonder though, because
that's what Tom Cruise was doing. Wondering, am I not?
Well,
I don't know.
I wonder, was it shot like this to get maybe the women in the audience interested?
Oh, I'd say for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a way to get women to the theater to see the movie about fighter pilots. That's probably why it did so well, is instead of being a movie like Iron Eagle, I'm sure the numbers for viewing weren't as good for that because the women were like, it's just an action flick. Where Top Gun would have been the same way, but then they're like, ooh.
Yeah.
And then
it's definitely a draw.
Sure.
it's definitely a draw. I don't know of any women that don't like this movie, to be honest. I mean, I may know a few that don't, but I mean, I can probably call up every woman that I know and poll them, and I'd be willing to bet there's an 80% approval rate for this movie, based on that.
Yeah.
So I feel like they were giving. What's that?
I was gonna say it'd be like the movie The Wrestler. To get men to go watch The Wrestler, they had Marissa Tomei as a stripper. You know, what man really cares about an aging wrestler, unless it's like a real life WWF documentary,
right? Which that movie's based loosely on Jake the Snake, but yeah, regardless.
Oh yeah, yeah, but who cares about Jake the Snake?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not your average guy,
Roddy Piper.
But yeah, I feel like that was their way of kind of balancing it with, you know, they were like, oh well, you know, we've got all this testosterone going on. Let's have them get all oiled up and flex while playing volleyball on the beach, and the girls will love that. So I feel like there's definitely that. Same thing with the love scenes and everything else. None of the guys went to go see Top Gun for the love scenes.
Well, we'll jump ahead of ourselves, but it's kind of interesting you mentioned the love scene here, because there's when it was huh?
You're not gonna tell us you went to see it for the love scene, are you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
But the original cut of this movie, when they did it with test audiences, they said there wasn't enough romance between Maverick and Charlie. So they went back, the production had already wrapped. They went back months later and they did the scene with Maverick and Charlie in the elevator. That's why she's wearing a hat, because her hair had already been cut and dyed, and she looked nothing like she did for the movie. And if you notice, Maverick's hair is longer.
She'd also lost weight.
Yes. And then when they did the sex scene, that, I guess Tony Scott literally only had about 15 minutes to shoot that.
Well, it only took him like a minute and a half.
Well, right. It was what, maybe 2-3 minutes of footage, but they had to go back and insert this into the film, because
you have to say insert.
Yeah, something got inserted.
Yeah. Well,
and during that scene too, Kelly's 5'10", and Tom Cruise is listed at 5'7". Tom Cruise is not 5'7". Tom Cruise is shorter than that. Every actor in Hollywood, they always add an inch or two to their height. You know,
he's adding an
Arnold Schwarzenegger, Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I mean, they had him standing on boxes in this movie.
Mm-hmm. He had inserts in his shoes.
He's wearing cowboy boots with lifts in them, just to be her height. And in that scene, in the love scene, when it's all blue, there's a scene where it starts over her right shoulder and they kind of swoop around the corner, mm-hmm. and he's standing there. If you look carefully, she's doing kind of a half squat. She's got her legs spread so that she's the same height as him. And she's kind of, and you can barely see it, but her left leg, like you can see that she's literally like leg spread, kind of squatting down against the wall. And that's why she's against the wall, is because she's using it as leverage. And I mean,
never noticed that before.
But she wasn't even wearing shoes in the one scene where she gets out of the Porsche wannabe.
Yep. She doesn't wear shoes through any of their scenes together. She's flat-footed and he's in cowboy boots with lifts.
Damn, I never noticed that before. No, I knew he was in cowboy boots with lifts, but I never noticed she was barefoot.
Yep.
Yep. Oh boy. So next we get into the next big aerial hop, which I think this one's a little more interesting because we have now 4 aircraft in the mix. We have Hollywood and Maverick and Jester and Viper. Now, I did notice as their Maverick is covering Hollywood as he's going after Jester, and he looks over and he sees Viper flying low, and he says something to the effect of, you're okay, I'm going to go after Viper. If you watch closely the aerial shots, Wolfman is in front of Maverick in the flight order, but when he goes vertical to go after Viper, it's the front plane that goes vertical. I never, it might not be any important to anyone else, but I just thought it was weird that I never noticed that before, that it's the wrong plane that went vertical. It should have been the one behind, but it was the one in front.
Interesting. I never caught that.
It just, the first time I watched through it the other day, it just looked weird. I'm like, that's not right. And then I watched it again, and anyways.
I said that a lot during the movie.
What, that's not right?
Yeah.
Well, just going back to Tom Cruise's height, I mean, you have to be, I want to say you have to be over 6 foot or 6'1" or something like that to be a fighter pilot. Isn't that like a thing?
No, I was curious, so I looked that up. The minimum height for naval aviation is 5'2".
What?
Yes. The maximum height is 6'5".
So he's still not tall enough to ride the ride.
That's interesting, because I always heard that you had to be a certain height. Maybe it's different, per branches or whatever, or maybe that's been phased out. But
one of the regs,
maybe you can slide the seat up now.
I wonder if the regs changed because from back then, because current, at least from what I looked up, current Navy regs, that's what it says.
Interesting.
I believe the U.S. Air Force, I believe, is a minimum of 5'6".
Huh.
To fly 5'7", I believe, is a minimum. I know 6'3" is max. You can't be over 6'3" and fly. At least when I was in.
Interesting. Okay.
So we
well, there you go.
So we get into this next dogfight, of course, and Maverick gets his ass kicked. And of course, we're back again. We're back in the shower scene where there's a theme here where Iceman keeps saying, I don't like you because you're dangerous. It's not your flying, it's your attitude. You're more dangerous than the enemy. In some ways, he's not wrong, I guess, but he's kind of bashing on the hero. They set him up as like enemies to each other, but it never felt right. What do you guys think?
Like the pot and the kettle, though. He's the reason Goose died.
This is true. We'll get there, but this is very true.
Well, I feel like Iceman is framed as the villain or as the adversary,
right?
And they're both basically two alpha males that are duking it out, and they're trying to claw at each other for the top of the heap. I don't view Iceman as like the villain in this movie. I just view him as a very different. He's the guy that's doing everything right and playing by the rules, and he's the team guy, and then Maverick is the opposite of that. And there's naturally going to be a clash, but even when I was a kid, I never saw Iceman as like the bad guy. He was just the other guy.
I saw him as more like the good guy.
Yeah. If you view this movie through his eyes, then it's a totally different movie. It's like, there's this asshole and he keeps messing everything up, and he got his.
It's kind of like the Karate Kid, Johnny and Daniel.
Yeah, very much.
It would have been
a lot of parallels.
It would have been an interesting movie to see the movie from Iceman being the lead character instead of Maverick. Just
absolutely
seeing it from Iceman's perspective, that would be interesting.
Yeah,
I would definitely watch that.
Well, I feel like that's a more interesting movie, I think.
Yeah, because that pretty much makes Maverick a shitbag.
He is, dude.
Like, I could see it now. Like, they could call it How I Won Top Gun, and how this one guy almost screwed it all up for me, and he got his Rio killed, and he had an affair with the civilian contractor. It's a
very jerk.
Yeah, it's a totally different point of view, and it's like, wait a minute, you know.
So I think that would have been a better movie.
The wonder society in America has failed. It's because of Top Gun. Rooted for Tom Cruise all these years, and he was a villain.
Top Gun fucked up a lot of shit.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Karate Kid, because I feel like there's kind of a correlation with that too. Is like Daniel kind of backed his way into the karate tournament, and and used trickery to win, and wizardry, and an illegal kick to the face, by the way. So he also was kind of a maverick and kind of broke the rules and did his own thing. And Maverick wasn't the best, Cougar was. So he gets into Top Gun on a technicality, and he kind of backs his way in and almost wins it by breaking all the rules and cheating.
Speaking of Karate Kid Part 2, I'm not sure how much you guys watch. Clarence Gilliard Jr., so Sundown, is in that movie for a brief scene when and he's military.
Really?
You think they're connected? He's on leave or stationed over there, and he's just
that where he's the one that's in the bar and he's like trying to chop the ice in half, right?
And then he calls Daniel, like, he wasn't like
damn it, now I'm gonna have to go back and watch that, because I didn't know that. So
and then after he got out of the military, he joined up with a terrorist group and tried to take over.
He became a computer expert and went to work for Hans Gruber.
Oh, that's right. God, that is him, isn't it? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he found the errors of his way and hooked up with the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, I was working with good old Chuck.
You're saying he got his education from the Navy.
Yeah, he learned everything from, the good part of him came from Iceman. The bad villain is when he hung out with Maverick.
We mentioned Jester here. Something I was glancing at my notes here. I forgot to mention this. In the scene where they're getting screamed at in or Maverick's getting in the office, they do a quick shot of Jester's flight suit. His wings are actually U.S. Air Force senior pilot wings. They are not naval aviator wings. I got a better one when it comes to Viper, but I'll get to that in a second, because that just blew my mind when I read this. So where were we?
I think that was probably just a costuming mix up.
Well, I know they purposely never get a military uniform right, because I believe it's against the law. Is it not, Art, to get it 100% perfect?
I think it was, but I think there have been a few movies they've made exceptions for. But I think at the time, I don't think they were really allowed to be 100% authentic. Because there was some stuff like that I was questioning, like they established at one point the Maverick's dad was killed in 1965.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a patch on the back of his leather jacket that says, what is that? Far East Cruise 63-4.
Mm-hmm.
So are they implying that was his dad's jacket?
I think that's the implication. Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. But since you mentioned that, I noticed so when Maverick and Charlie are having dinner, and of course they're listening to Otis Redding's Dock of the Bay, right?
Which is messed up.
Maverick says, this music, my parents loved it. And then goes on to say that his father went down in 1965. Well, that song wasn't written until 1967.
Well, and Otis Redding also died in a plane crash.
Really?
Yeah. True story.
There's irony in there somewhere. So
yeah.
Well, it's also kind of funny that he talks about how his mom used to listen to Otis Redding, and it drove him crazy because he hated it. But yet he loves You've Lost That Love and Feeling by the Righteous Brothers and Great Balls of Fire by Jerry Lee Lewis. So he obviously likes music from that era, but not Otis Redding.
Well,
yeah,
So
because fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck Otis Redding. But the Righteous Brothers, those guys were great.
Yeah. So let me just touch on this real quick because I took some notes on this. I thought this was kind of interesting. So at one point when you see Viper in his tans and you see all of his medals. So according to what I found here, it says Viper wears 4 decorations which are incredibly rare, if not impossible, for a career fighter pilot to have earned. The first is the Antarctica Service Medal, which, while authorized for all branches, is typically only awarded to U.S. Air Force transport crews working in Antarctica, doing airlift missions. The second is a Coast Guard Arctic Service Medal. The Navy has their own equivalent, and it's only awarded to submarine crews.
Yep.
And third is a Multinational Force and Observers Medal. Whereas this is an Egyptian-Israeli peacekeeping mission, which never involved fighter aircraft at all. Then the last, he wears a Vietnam Presidential Use-It citation. But this was only awarded for Americans for humanitarian actions, not carrier-based flight crews.
Wow.
Oops.
The Viper was busy. He was a busy guy.
Yeah. Where was that bullshit?
Right.
You know, maybe he's like what's that? The villain from Superman 2 that just takes everything and puts on herself. Ursa. The police badge. Oh, this person's I just killed this person. I'll just take their medals and put them on.
He's not going to need this. I'll just fix this to my uniform.
Look, my trophy.
Well, that's what I think that is that's a costumer just reaching into a bucket full of medals and being like, here, we'll put these on. That looks good. Yeah, I like the color on this one.
Yeah.
This will look great on film.
The blue makes your eyes pop.
Yeah. I'm scared. Your eyes are just so icy blue. Let's use this one, Antarctica.
I just thought that was, when I came across this, I just thought that was interesting because I knew, like I said, they'll have things out of order on the rack or whatever, but that was so blatant that you're probably right there. You're probably. Hi, Maria.
Hi.
We ran way over.
We did. We ran way over.
Do you want me to come back later?
Tell you what, can you give us 10 minutes to wrap this up? Seriously, okay. Give me 10 minutes. We'll wrap this up. And
well, we have a woman here. Does she like Top Gun? Do
you like Top Gun?
Geez. I guess. I mean, it was never a favorite. I never cared for Tom Cruise movies.
Good answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even in the movie Legend, I was just like, it's not believable.
What about the volleyball scene? Did you like that?
Yes. What is your thoughts on the volleyball scene?
I don't remember the volleyball scene, so I'm going to assume it had boobs. I don't know.
They were all guys.
It was all guys. Okay, sorry.
Okay, obviously she's one that passes the okay test.
So let's put a bow on this real quick.
There's a couple of things I do want to touch on before we end, but yeah,
please go ahead.
I will. I'll come back in a bit. Okay.
Are you sure?
In about like 10 minutes.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I feel like we glossed over Meg Ryan, and she plays. It's an interesting performance in this because I feel like she plays her character like she has head trauma. And I don't know. It's an odd choice because, I mean, I get it that she's, she has like a Southern accent and all that. And maybe she's like, oh yeah, Southern people are dumb. So I'm going to play her kind of ditzy and dumb.
Wasn't this your first role?
This was her first movie role. She'd been on TV and stuff, but between her and Kelly McGillis being, the quote unquote older woman, I mean, they're both kind of, I use the word frumpy, but I mean, they're not oversexed. and they're not, I mean, even their wardrobes, they're not played for the skin. And when you compare that and juxtapose it against all the guys that are basically, walking around in their underwear and sweaty and everything else, I feel like that was done for the ladies as well, where it's like, look, these look like normal everyday women, not, they're not aerobics instructors, and they're not, walking around in bikinis, and they're not doing Michael Bay, what's her name from the Transformers movies,
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox. They're not doing like poses like her where they're like leaning over an engine with their ass in the air. Like it's a big contrast between like, hey, look how sexy all these young 24-year-old dudes are. Oh, and then here's Meg Ryan, acting like she just got hit in the head with a hammer. And it's an interesting choice that she picked for that role.
Well, what's also kind of interesting about like when they introduce her into the film, when Maverick and Goose are sitting in the NEX waiting area, did anybody catch what that airplane that Goose is holding on to?
Starscream.
Yeah, Starscream.
I noticed that. I was just going to bring that up. So,
like I said,
that was
worst Transformers.
Neat little Easter egg.
Yeah, worst Transformers movie ever.
So,
go ahead, Dean.
No, go ahead. And you guys want to air? Let's put it this way: we usually are. We did run really long on this. Maybe we'll revisit this later and like maybe a part 2 for this. But on a whole, the way we usually do it is, okay, would you if someone's never seen this, huh?
Oh, I said this movie is a number 2.
Okay, would you recommend this movie? Art, if you've never seen it, would you recommend it? Is it a watch?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's one of those movies from the 80s. Everybody should see at least once. Because this is one of those movies that could never be made again. Not like it was.
Right. And of course, at a rate and scale 1 to 10, how do you rate it?
Oh, fuck. If I could give it a negative rating, a negative number, I would. I'm going to say a number 2 because that's what it is.
Okay. Matt?
I definitely recommend seeing it. I think for all of its faults, it's an important movie for a few reasons. It set the template for the Hollywood big time blockbuster action movie for the next decade. It really influenced how a lot of other movies were made. For one of the biggest reasons, the use of music in this movie. The soundtrack is,
I love the soundtrack.
To this day, that soundtrack is still selling well. The score is amazing. Harold Faltermeyer did that.
It's never been
Steve
released.
Stevens. Yeah, I would love just a score with him and Steve Stevens, with the guitar work and everything else, and that synth, that heavy, that boom, 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 boom. It's just very, it's very effective. Just its effect on pop culture with the sayings and everything else, as annoying as they can be. I mean, it endured. It's an important film, and again, with capturing that whole patriotism and everything involved with it, it kind of brought MTV to the action movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of the first movies to really do that. The use of older music in this film was also the first time I ever remember seeing 2 20-plus-year-old songs featured and enjoyed and sung by the cast that are in their early 20s. Kids in their early 20s don't listen to songs that are over 20 years old. They don't care. But they're playing Great Balls of Fire, and they're singing "You've Lost That Loving Feeling" in a bar to a woman that they're trying to hit on.
Right.
These are, it brought those songs. it made songs that are 20 years old cool again. And seeing this as a kid, it made songs from the 60s cool in my book. Whereas before, I didn't. I mean, if it wasn't Madonna or Prince or Michael Jackson, I didn't care. It didn't need to be part of my lexicon. So I think for what it did for that, it's great. The aerial photography will never be matched. I don't think they'll ever do a movie that will shoot as well as the planes are in this movie. The closest I can think of are like Firefox and Iron Eagle, but I just don't see it happening again. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the end credit sequence, which it has one of my favorite. This and Predator have my two favorite end credits of any movie, and it's while the song, the end of "You've Lost That Loving Feeling" plays, and they show each character and their name,
yep,
and their character name, their call sign. And they don't talk about, when they show Kelly McGillis, it's not Charlene, whatever her name is, it's Charlie. And when they show James Tolkan, it's Stinger, and it's actually, they don't show him. I don't know. Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do. Yep.
And it's just, it's so cool because it really showcases the actors that were just in the movie you saw. And even the ones like Adrian Pasdar, he has one line in that movie when they're at graduation, and he's like, "Hey, have you seen Maverick?" "Oh, no, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to show." "Yeah, it's got to be hard on the guy, I mean, that's all he says in the whole movie, but they give him that credence at the end where it's like, yeah, here's Adrian Pasdar as Chipper. I love that when they give actors the credit for the, that end credit in the movie. It's always nice.
How would you rate it from 1 to 10? 1 being the worst movie you've ever seen, 10 being,
I give it a 6.5.
Okay.
I give it a 6.5 based on those things. And the other 3.5 demerits I give for mostly for Tom Cruise. And some of the choices that were made in this movie. But yeah, I mean, the things that I like about it definitely outweigh the things I don't. The things that I have problems with, I definitely have problems with.
Gotcha. Russ?
And the sweat budget for this movie was tremendous. So I don't know if I've ever seen a sweatier movie other than maybe Extreme Prejudice with Nick Nolte.
I don't know.
And that's all my notes. So on to you, Russ.
Christy Canyon. Russ?
Oh. Do I recommend someone seeing it? Yeah, because it's one of those 80 icon movies. You do need to see it. Do I recommend buying it? No. Just one of those things where I enjoy watching it again last night for the first time in several years. Little things I forgot about. It's almost like it's taken on like a little bit of a comedy movie to me now, where there's parts that as a kid, when I first saw it, it was indifferent or it seemed lame, but then as an adult, I chuckle. So I would give it like a 4.
4. Okay.
Just because it's one of those. Do I care if I ever see it again? Probably not. I'd love to watch Iron Eagle again. I would buy Iron Eagle. Top Gun would probably be more like bottom shelf.
Okay. Well, we got more movies to do. We're gonna have to put Iron Eagle on the list.
Just promise me we're not doing Dirty Dancing.
No, we're not gonna do Dirty Dancing.
Why not?
Movie from this era I hate more than Top Gun.
Really?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Did someone put art in the corner?
Oh,
nobody puts art in.
Nobody. Yeah.
You got to bring me back for Iron Eagle. I do love that one.
As
ridiculous as it is.
Yeah. Hey, it's 80s, It's predictable. It's like everyone knew Daniel was going to win Karate Kid.
For me,
what about?
I would say yes. This is definitely. I agree with the three of you. This is an icon movie. You have to see it because it kind of defined a time period. And I'd probably give this about a 7, only because I love the aircraft. I'm a jet junkie, and very rarely do you get to see F-14s moving around like this, and especially with the aerial shots, they were gorgeous. But as a whole, yeah, like 6.5, 7, then it's definitely a watch. Well, any other comments you guys want to add?
No, I'm good.
No, I think that's all my notes.
Oh,
All
sorry.
right. Well, thank you, everyone, and we will catch you on the next one. Let's give it, say, 20 seconds, Art, if you want to kill the recording.